The diamond on my finger caught the light, sending sparkles dancing across the pristine white tablecloth. I couldn't help but smile, twisting the ring back and forth, still not quite believing it was there. After 10 years, Michael had finally proposed. "Emily, dear, you're positively glowing." Eleanor, my soon-to-be mother-in-law, reached across the table and patted my hand. "I'm so thrilled," Michael finally popped the question. "Lord knows, I've been dropping hints for years." I laughed, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. "Trust me, Eleanor, I've been dropping hints too. But you know Michael, always moving at his own pace." Eleanor's smile faltered for just a moment, so quickly I almost missed it. She took a sip of her tea, her perfectly manicured nails clinking against the delicate china. "Yes, well, that's my Michael. Always been a bit stubborn." Something in her tone made me pause. "Is everything all right, Eleanor?" She waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, of course, dear. It's just—" She leaned in, lowering her voice. "There's something you should know about our family. Something I probably should have told you years ago." My heart started to race. "What is it?" Eleanor glanced around the crowded restaurant as if checking for eavesdroppers. "It's about Michael's father. The story he's told you, well, it's not entirely true." I frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" "Michael said his father died when he was young." "That's what Michael believes," Eleanor said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But the truth is, his father left us, abandoned us when Michael was just a baby." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "What? But... Why would Michael lie about that?" Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. "He doesn't know, Emily. I told him his father died. I couldn't bear for him to know the truth." My mind was reeling. How could Michael not know something so fundamental about his own life? And why had Eleanor kept this secret for so long? Before I could ask any more questions, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Michael. "Where are you? Thought we were meeting at 2?" I glanced at my watch and cursed under my breath. "I'm so sorry, Eleanor. I completely lost track of time. I'm supposed to be meeting Michael to look at venues." Eleanor nodded, composing herself quickly. "Of course, dear. Go. We can talk more later." As I gathered my things, Eleanor grabbed my wrist. "Emily, please, don't say anything to Michael. Not yet. Let me be the one to tell him." I hesitated, torn between my loyalty to Michael and the pleading look in Eleanor's eyes. Finally, I nodded. "All right. But soon, okay? He deserves to know." Eleanor smiled gratefully. "Thank you, dear. You're going to make a wonderful addition to our family." As I hurried out of the restaurant, my mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Joy at my engagement warred with the shock of Eleanor's revelation. How well did I really know the man I was about to marry? I spotted Michael waiting outside the first venue on our list, looking handsome as ever in his tailored suit. He grinned when he saw me, pulling me in for a kiss. "There's my beautiful fiancé," he said. "Ready to start planning our future?" I forced a smile, pushing down the guilt and confusion roiling in my stomach. "Of course, let's go." As we walked into the venue, hand in hand, I couldn't shake the feeling that our perfect love story was about to get a lot more complicated. I stared at my phone, my heart sinking as I read Michael's text. "Sorry, babe. Can't make it to the florist today. Work emergency." This was the 3rd time in 2 weeks he'd canceled our wedding preparations. I sighed, tossing the phone onto the couch. The excitement of planning our big day was quickly turning into frustration and doubt. The doorbell rang, startling me out of my thoughts. I opened the door to find Eleanor standing there, a sympathetic smile on her face. "Emily, dear, I hope I'm not intruding, but I thought you might need some company today." I felt a rush of gratitude. "Eleanor, you're a lifesaver. Please, come in." As we settled in the living room with cups of tea, Eleanor asked, "So how are the wedding plans coming along?" I couldn't hold back anymore. The words tumbled out in a rush. "Honestly, they're not. Michael keeps canceling on me. It's like he doesn't even care about the wedding." Eleanor's face softened with concern. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm sure that's not true. Michael can be difficult sometimes, but he loves you." I nodded, not entirely convinced. "I know. It's just, ever since you told me about his father, I can't help but wonder what else I don't know about him." Eleanor reached out and squeezed my hand. "Emily, I'm so sorry. I never meant to cause trouble between you two. Perhaps I shouldn't have said anything." "No," I said firmly. "I'm glad you told me. I just wish Michael would open up to me more." We spent the next hour talking, Eleanor sharing stories about Michael's childhood that made me laugh and reminded me why I fell in love with him. By the time she left, I felt a little better, but the nagging doubt remained. That evening Michael came home late, looking tired and distracted. "Hey," I said, trying to keep the accusation out of my voice. "How was your work emergency?" He barely glanced at me as he loosened his tie. Oh, yeah, just a client freaking out about nothing. You know how it is." I took a deep breath. "Michael, we need to talk about the wedding. You keep canceling our appointments, and I'm starting to feel like I'm planning this whole thing alone." He finally looked at me, his expression a mix of guilt and irritation. "Come on, Em. You know how busy I am at work. Can't you handle this stuff?" His dismissive tone sparked something in me. "This is our wedding, Michael. Not just mine. It should be important to both of us." Michael's face hardened. "Of course it's important to me. I just don't see why we need to make such a big deal out of every little detail." We argued back and forth, our voices rising until we were both shouting. Finally, Michael grabbed his keys. "I need some air," he snapped, slamming the door behind him. I collapsed onto the couch, tears streaming down my face. How had we gone from the joy of our engagement to this in just a few short weeks? My phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. "Checking in. Hope everything's okay." Without thinking, I called her back. "Eleanor?" I choked out between sobs. "Can you come over? I really need someone to talk to." "Of course, dear," she said without hesitation. "I'll be right there." As I hung up, I felt a mix of relief and guilt. I should be talking to Michael, working things out with him. Instead, I was turning to his mother for comfort. But as I waited for Eleanor to arrive, I couldn't shake the feeling that she understood me better than Michael did right now, and that thought terrified me more than anything else. The clock on the nightstand glared at me, 2:37 a.m. I rolled over, the empty space beside me, a cold reminder of Michael's absence. This was the third night this week he'd stayed out late, claiming it was just innocent fun with the guys. "Bachelor's last hurrah," he'd said with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. I grabbed my phone, thumb hovering over Michael's name. No, I decided. I wouldn't be that person, constantly checking up on him. Instead, I opened my messages with Eleanor. "You awake?" I typed, then immediately regretted it. What kind of soon-to-be daughter-in-law texts her fiancé's mother in the middle of the night? To my surprise, a reply came almost instantly. "Can't sleep either? Want to talk?" Relief washed over me. "Michael's out again. I'm worried." "Come over for breakfast tomorrow. We'll chat." The next morning I found myself sitting at Eleanor's kitchen table, a steaming mug of coffee warming my hands. "I don't know what to do," I confessed. "It's like Michael's a different person lately." Eleanor's face was a mask of concern. "Has he said anything about his father?" I shook my head. "No, and I haven't brought it up. I'm scared it'll just make things worse." She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "Emily, dear, I'm so sorry. I never meant for my secret to cause such trouble. It's not your fault," I assured her, "but I can't help feeling like there's something Michael's not telling me." Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from Michael. "Where are you? Woke up and you were gone." I showed Eleanor the message, my frustration bubbling over. "He's one to talk. He didn't even come home last night." Eleanor's expression hardened. "This isn't like Michael. Something's not right." As I typed a reply, another text came through. This one made my blood run cold. "Who's Vanessa? Why does she keep calling you?" I stared at the screen, confusion and anger warring inside me. "Eleanor, I don't know any Vanessa. What is he talking about?" Eleanor's face paled. "Oh, dear, I think I might know who Vanessa is." My heart raced. "What? Who?" She hesitated, then said softly, "Vanessa is Michael's father's new wife." The room spun. "What? But you said his father left when Michael was a baby. How could he?" "I'm so sorry, Emily. There's more to the story than I told you. Michael's father, he's been trying to reconnect. I've been keeping his messages from Michael, trying to protect him." I felt like I couldn't breathe. "So all this time Michael's father has been alive? Trying to contact him, and you've been hiding it?" Eleanor nodded, tears in her eyes. "I thought I was doing the right thing, but now, with Michael acting so strangely, I'm afraid he might have found out somehow." My mind raced. Could this explain Michael's recent behavior? The late nights, the secretiveness? Was he meeting with his long-lost father behind my back? "I have to go," I said, standing abruptly. I need to talk to Michael. Eleanor grabbed my arm. Emily, wait, please be careful. Michael, he can be like his father sometimes. Unpredictable when he's upset. Her words sent a chill down my spine. What exactly was she implying? As I drove home, my emotions swirled like a storm. Anger at Michael for lying, at Eleanor for keeping secrets, at myself for not seeing what was happening right in front of me. I pulled into our driveway, steeling myself for the confrontation to come. But as I opened the front door, I froze. The house was in chaos. Drawers pulled out, contents strewn across the floor. And there, in the middle of it all, stood Michael, a suitcase at his feet and a wild look in his eyes. Michael, I whispered, fear gripping my heart. What's going on? He turned to me, his face a mask of pain and fury. I know everything, Emily. About my father, about the lies, and I know you've been talking to my mother behind my back. As he advanced towards me, I realized with terrifying clarity that I didn't know this man at all. And I had no idea what he was capable of. The morning of my wedding day dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to the turmoil in my heart. I stood before the mirror, my white dress, a ghostly reflection of the bride I was supposed to be. But all I could see were the shadows of doubt in my eyes. Last night's confrontation with Michael played on repeat in my mind. His anger, his accusations, the way he'd grabbed my arm when I tried to leave. In the end, he'd broken down, sobbing about his father's betrayal and begging for forgiveness. We'd talked for hours and he'd promised to be better, to be honest from now on. But as I adjusted my veil, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was making a terrible mistake. A soft knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Emily? Eleanor's voice called. Can I come in? I hesitated, then called out, Yes, come in. Eleanor entered, her eyes widening as she took in my appearance. Oh, Emily, you look beautiful. I tried to smile, but it felt forced. Thank you, Eleanor. She approached me, her face etched with concern. Are you sure about this, dear? After everything that's happened? I turned back to the mirror, avoiding her gaze. Michael explained everything. He was just upset about his father. We're going to work through it together. Eleanor's reflection frowned. Emily, I know my son. He's not always... Please, I interrupted, my voice sharper than I intended. I've made my decision. Eleanor nodded, her eyes sad. All right, dear, I just want you to be happy. As she left, I felt a pang of guilt. Eleanor had become such a source of comfort these past weeks, but she was still Michael's mother. I couldn't keep relying on her. The ceremony was a blur. I walked down the aisle, my eyes locked on Michael. He looked handsome in his tux, his smile bright and reassuring. But as I reached him, I noticed a slight tremor in his hands. We exchanged vows, Michael's voice steady as he promised love and fidelity. When it was my turn, I hesitated for just a moment, my doubts threatening to choke me. But I pushed through, the words leaving my lips even as my heart raced with uncertainty. I now pronounce you husband and wife, the officiant declared, and Michael pulled me in for a kiss. The small crowd of family and friends applauded, but it sounded distant and muffled to my ears. At the reception, I plastered on a smile, accepting congratulations and posing for photos. But my eyes kept drifting to Michael, watching as he downed glass after glass of champagne. Are you okay? I whispered during a quiet moment. He grinned, his eyes slightly unfocused. Never better, babe. We did it. As the night wore on, Michael became more boisterous, his laughter too loud, his movements unsteady. I saw Eleanor watching him with a mix of concern and resignation. Finally, as the last guests were leaving, Michael stumbled, nearly knocking over the gift table. I rushed to steady him, the smell of alcohol heavy on his breath. I think it's time we went home, I said softly. He laughed, pulling me close. Home? But the party's just getting started. I extricated myself from his grip, my patience wearing thin. Michael, please, you're drunk. His face darkened. Don't tell me what I am, he snapped, loud enough for the remaining guests to turn and stare. Embarrassment and anger flooded through me. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Instead, I felt like I was drowning. Eleanor appeared at my side, her hand on my arm. Let me help you get him home, she offered quietly. I nodded, too tired to argue. As we maneuvered a protesting Michael into the car, Eleanor squeezed my hand. Remember, Emily, she said, her voice low and urgent, you always have a choice. As we drove away, Michael already passed out in the back seat, her words echoed in my mind. A choice. But what choice did I have now? I was married, for better or for worse. Looking at Michael's slumped form in the rearview mirror, I couldn't help but wonder, was this the worse I'd signed up for? And if so, how much worse could it get? I zipped up the last suitcase, my heart fluttering with a mix of excitement and apprehension. Our honeymoon to Bali was just hours away, a chance to escape the tension of the past few weeks and start our married life on a positive note. Maybe, just maybe, this trip would be the fresh start Michael and I desperately needed. As I wheeled the luggage to the front door, my phone rang. Michael's name flashed on the screen. "Hey, honey," I answered, trying to keep my voice light. "Are you on your way home? Our flight's in 4 hours." There was a pause, then Michael's voice came through, strained and hesitant. I have some bad news." My stomach dropped. "What is it?" "It's my mom," he said. "She's in the hospital, some kind of sudden illness. I'm with her now." I sank onto the couch, my mind reeling. "Oh my God, is she okay? What happened?" "The doctors aren't sure yet," Michael replied. "But I don't think we can go on our honeymoon, not with Mom like this." The words hit me like a physical blow. I closed my eyes, fighting back tears of frustration and disbelief. "Michael, are you sure? Can't your sister stay with her? We've been planning this trip for months." I know, he said, his voice rising. "But she's my mother, Emily. I can't just leave her like this." I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of emotions inside me. "Okay, I understand. Should I come to the hospital?" "No," Michael said quickly, then softened his tone. "No, that's okay. You stay home. I'll call you with updates." As I hung up, a nagging doubt crept into my mind. Something about Michael's tone, the way he'd refused my offer to come to the hospital, it didn't sit right. Before I could talk myself out of it, I dialed Eleanor's number. It rang several times before going to voicemail. I frowned, my unease growing. I paced the living room, my mind racing. What if Eleanor wasn't really sick? What if this was just another of Michael's lies? But why would he lie about this? Hours passed, and still no word from Michael. My calls went straight to voicemail. By evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my keys and drove to the hospital. At the reception, I asked for Eleanor's room number, only to be met with confusion. "I'm sorry, ma'am," the nurse said, "but we don't have any patient by that name." My world tilted on its axis. That's impossible. My husband said she was admitted this morning." The nurse shook her head sympathetically. "I've been on shift all day. No, Eleanor has been admitted." I stumbled out of the hospital, my mind in chaos. Michael had lied. Again. But why? Where was he really? As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from an unknown number, but the content made my blood run cold. "Your husband isn't who you think he is. Meet me at the Bluebird Cafe in an hour if you want the truth. V. Vanessa, Michael's father's new wife, the woman at the center of all this chaos." I stood in the hospital parking lot, the weight of decision heavy on my shoulders. Should I meet this mysterious Vanessa? Should I confront Michael? Or should I finally listen to that voice inside me that had been screaming for weeks, telling me to run? My fingers hovered over my phone, ready to reply to the text. In that moment, I knew my decision would change everything. There was no going back from here. With a deep breath, I typed my response, sealing my fate with 4 simple words. "I'll be there. Emily." As I got into my car, heading towards the unknown, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a ruined honeymoon. This was the beginning of the end of everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, and the man I thought I loved. My hands trembled as I pushed open the door to the Bluebird Cafe. The aroma of coffee and pastries did nothing to calm my frayed nerves. I scanned the room, my heart pounding, until I spotted a woman in the corner booth. She looked up, her eyes meeting mine, and I knew instantly this was Vanessa. As I slid into the seat across from her, she spoke first. "Emily, I presume? Thank you for coming." I nodded, studying her face. She was beautiful, with an air of confidence that made me feel instantly inadequate. "You said you had the truth about Michael. I'm listening." Vanessa sighed, pushing a manila folder across the table. "Everything you need to know is in here, but I warn you, it's not pretty." With shaking hands, I opened the folder. Photos spilled out. Michael with another woman, laughing, kissing. Dates stamped in the corner showed this wasn't just a one-time thing. It had been going on for months. "Who is she?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "His secretary," Vanessa replied. "But that's not all. Keep reading." I flipped through documents, bank statements, emails, even a copy of a lease agreement. The pieces started to fall into place, each revelation more devastating than the last. He's been embezzling from his company, I said, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. And he's planning to leave the country? Vanessa nodded grimly. With her? The honeymoon cancellation? It was just an excuse. He's planning to disappear with the money and his mistress. I felt like I was drowning, gasping for air in a sea of betrayal. But why? Why tell me all this? Because, Vanessa leaned forward, her eyes intense. Michael isn't just hurting you, he's hurting everyone around him, including his father, my husband. We want to stop him before it's too late. Just then, my phone rang. Eleanor's name flashed on the screen. I answered, my voice shaky. Eleanor? Emily, dear. I've been trying to reach you. Is everything all right? Michael said you two had to cancel your honeymoon because of me, but I'm perfectly fine. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. I ended the call, my mind racing. She's not sick. She never was. Vanessa's expression was a mix of sympathy and determination. Now you know the truth. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I stood up abruptly, a plan forming in my mind. I'm going to confront him. And then I'm going on that honeymoon, but not with Michael. Vanessa raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? A grim smile played on my lips. I'm taking Eleanor instead. Let's see how Michael likes it when his lies catch up to him. I rushed home, my mind a whirlwind of emotions and plans. As I burst through the door, I found Michael packing a suitcase. Em, he exclaimed, surprise and guilt flashing across his face. I thought you'd be out. I was just... Packing for our canceled honeymoon? I interrupted, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Or maybe for your little getaway with your secretary. The color drained from Michael's face. What are you talking about? I threw the folder on the bed, photos and documents scattering. I know everything, Michael. The affair, the embezzlement, all of it. He lunged for the folder, but I was quicker. I snatched it back, backing away. Don't even think about it. It's over, Michael. I'm leaving and I'm taking everything we have. You'll have nothing left when I'm done. Michael's expression morphed from shock to anger. He advanced towards me, his fists clenched. You can't do this to me. I won't let you. Fear coursed through me, but I stood my ground. Try and stop me. I dare you. As Michael raised his hand, the front door burst open. Eleanor rushed in, her face a mask of fury. Michael Andrew Thompson, don't you dare touch her. Michael froze, his eyes darting between Eleanor and me. I took advantage of his confusion, grabbing my pre-packed suitcase. Come on, Eleanor, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. We have a plane to catch. As we walked out, leaving a stunned Michael behind, I felt a strange mix of pain, relief, and exhilaration. The life I thought I knew was over, but a new chapter was just beginning. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. The moment I stepped through our front door, the tension in the air was palpable. Michael sat on the couch, his face a mask of barely contained anger. Our impromptu honeymoon with Eleanor had given me time to gather my thoughts, but nothing could have prepared me for this confrontation. Welcome home, Michael said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Did you enjoy your little vacation with my mother? I dropped my suitcase, steeling myself for the battle ahead. Cut the act, Michael. We both know what's really going on here. He stood, his eyes flashing dangerously. Oh, and what exactly is that, Emily? Your affair, for starters, I spat, my voice trembling with rage. And let's not forget the embezzlement. Did you really think you could just run away with your secretary and all that stolen money? Michael's face paled, then flushed with anger. Who told you? Was it Vanessa? That meddling bitch? It doesn't matter who told me, I shot back. What matters is that it's true, isn't it, Michael? He lunged forward, grabbing my arm. You don't understand. I had no choice. I wrenched away from him, my heart pounding. No choice? You had every choice. You chose to lie, to cheat, to steal. I did it for us, he yelled, his composure crumbling. For our future, I laughed bitterly. Our future. There is no our anymore, Michael. You destroyed that the moment you decided to betray me. Suddenly the door burst open. Eleanor rushed in, followed by a man I'd never seen before. Michael's face drained of all color. Dad? He whispered, his voice small and uncertain. The man, Michael's father, stepped forward, his face a mix of sadness and determination. It's time to face the music, son. Michael's eyes darted between us all, like a cornered animal. You don't understand, any of you. I was going to make it right. I just needed more time. More time for what? I demanded. More lies? More betrayal? Eleanor moved to my side, her hand on my shoulder. Emily, dear, I'm so sorry. I never imagined Michael would go this far. As the reality of the situation crashed down around us, Michael's facade finally crumbled. He sank to his knees, tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry, he sobbed. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far. But his words rang hollow in my ears. The man I thought I knew, the man I had loved for 10 years and married just weeks ago, was a stranger to me now. It's over, Michael, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. I want a divorce. He looked up at me, his eyes pleading. Emily, please. We can work this out. I'll make it right, I swear. I shook my head, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over me. No, Michael, you've had your chances. I'm done. As if on cue, there was a knock at the door. 2 police officers entered, their faces grim. Michael Thompson? One of them said. We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of embezzlement and fraud. As they read him his rights and led him away in handcuffs, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Relief, sadness, anger, and an overwhelming sense of loss. The life I thought I had, the future I had planned, it was all gone in an instant. Eleanor wrapped her arm around me as we watched Michael being driven away. What will you do now, dear? She asked softly. I took a deep breath, feeling both terrified and strangely liberated. I don't know, I admitted. But for the first time in a long time, I feel like I can finally start living for myself. As the police car disappeared around the corner, I realized that this wasn't just the end of my marriage. It was the beginning of a new chapter in my life, one filled with uncertainty, but also with the promise of freedom and self-discovery. The courthouse loomed before me, a monument to the end of my marriage and the beginning of my new life. I took a deep breath, steadying myself for what lay ahead. Eleanor's reassuring hand on my shoulder gave me the strength to push open the heavy doors. As we entered the courtroom, I saw Michael for the first time since his arrest. He looked haggard, his once confident demeanor replaced by a shell of a man. Our eyes met briefly, and I felt a twinge of something. Not love, not anymore, but a complex mixture of pity, anger, and regret. The proceedings began, a blur of legal jargon and formalities. I barely registered the words until the judge addressed me directly. Mrs. Thompson, do you wish to make a statement before the court renders its decision? I stood, my legs shaky but my resolve firm. Yes, Your Honor. As I faced the courtroom, I saw not just Michael, but the faces of those whose lives he'd affected, his parents, our friends, even his former secretary, who looked as broken as I felt. 10 years ago, I fell in love with a man I thought I knew, I began, my voice growing stronger with each word. I built my life around him, dreamed of a future with him, but that man never truly existed. Instead, I married a stranger, a liar, a cheater, a thief. Michael flinched at my words, but I pressed on. I stand here today not just as a victim of his crimes, but as a survivor. I've lost my marriage, my trust, and the future I thought I'd have. But I've gained something too, the truth and the strength to face it. I turned to Michael, meeting his gaze head-on. I forgive you, Michael. Not for your sake, but for mine. I refuse to let your betrayal define me or my future. As I sat down, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The judge's verdict came swiftly. Michael was sentenced to prison for his financial crimes, and our divorce was granted. Outside the courthouse, Eleanor enveloped me in a tight hug. I'm so proud of you, Emily, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I pulled back, studying her face. Eleanor, I don't know how to thank you for everything. She smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Oh, my dear, you don't need to thank me. Your family, no matter what. Those words, so simple yet so profound, broke something open inside me. I began to sob, releasing all the pain, anger, and fear I'd been holding on to for so long. Eleanor held me, her presence a balm to my battered soul. As my tears subsided, I realized something fundamental had shifted within me. The betrayal still hurt, the wounds were still raw, but I was no longer defined by them. I was more than Michael's ex-wife, more than a victim of his deceit. I was Emily, strong, resilient, and ready to write my own story. What now? Eleanor asked gently as we walked away from the courthouse. I took a deep breath, feeling the warm sun on my face and the promise of possibility in the air. Now I start over. I find out who I am without Michael, without the lies and the doubt. Eleanor squeezed my hand. And you won't be alone. I'll be right here every step of the way. I smiled, feeling a genuine spark of hope for the first time in months. I know. And that means more to me than you could ever know. As we drove away, leaving behind the shattered remains of my old life, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges I couldn't yet imagine. But I was ready to face them, armed with the truth, supported by unexpected friendships, and fueled by a newfound belief in myself. The betrayal that had nearly broken me had also set me free. And in that freedom, I found the strength to embrace the unknown, to forgive without forgetting, and to love again, starting with myself. As Eleanor and I planned a celebratory dinner, I realized that sometimes the most beautiful relationships can bloom from the ashes of betrayal. My story wasn't over, it was just beginning. And this time I would be the author of my own happily ever after. I slumped against the wall, my heart pounding as Dad's words echoed through the living room. Rachel, in this world, a woman's power is in her silence. Grandma Edith shot him a furious glare. Silence is not power, it's submission. You're suffocating her spirit. Dad's face reddened, and he turned his wrath on me. Go to your room, we'll discuss your disrespect later. I hurried out, tears stinging my eyes. Another misstep, another punishment looming. Grandma was right, my life felt like a prison, my voice constantly muzzled. Later that night, I heard shouting from downstairs. Grandma's voice rose defiantly above Dad's angry bellows. You can't keep treating her like this. She's not a possession to control. There was a loud crash, and my blood froze. I crept down the stairs to find Grandma clutching her cheek, a shattered vase at her feet. Get out, Dad snarled. You're a bad influence. Grandma looked at me, her eyes pleading. Come with me, Rachel, please. I didn't hesitate. Grabbing her hand, we fled into the night. Grandma's little house was cluttered but cozy, filled with life and laughter. She encouraged my love for art, something Dad had forbidden as frivolous. With her, I could breathe freely. A few years later at a local art fair, I met Marcus. Charming and supportive, he seemed like the perfect antidote to my oppressive past. Your work is incredible, he said, admiring my vibrant paintings. You have such talent. I blushed, captivated by his warm smile and genuine interest. Grandma approved, thrilled to see me happy. We married quickly, and at first everything was blissful. But gradually, Marcus's subtle criticisms began. Don't you think you're spending too much time on your art? He'd ask, frowning at my paint-stained hands. The house needs more attention. I brushed it off, not wanting to see the warning signs. Grandma's concerns, however, grew harder to ignore. Be careful, Rachel, she cautioned. His words may seem harmless, but they're trying to control you. I assured her it was fine, that Marcus simply wanted what was best for our future. But deep down, unease stirred, a sense that the silence I'd fought so hard to escape was closing in once more. The morning after our frantic escape, Grandma looked at me with sad eyes. I'm so sorry, Rachel. I should have gotten you out of there sooner. I squeezed her hand. You saved me. That's what matters, she smiled wanly. Your father, I always hoped he'd change, but some people are too set in their ways. An uncomfortable silence fell until she brightened. But now you're free. Free to live, to create, to become who you were truly meant to be. Under Grandma's guidance, I blossomed. Her chaotic little house became my sanctuary, a world away from Dad's harsh rules. I spent hours painting, pouring my pent-up emotions onto the canvas. At 18, I entered my first art show selling 3 pieces. The thrill of that accomplishment, the joy of strangers connecting with my work, nothing compared. Grandma beamed with pride. A few years later, at another local fair, a deep voice startled me. Excuse me, miss? Your paintings? They're breathtaking. I turned to see a tall, well-dressed man smiling warmly. Something about his gaze made me feel truly seen. I'm Marcus, he said, offering his hand. And you are? Rachel? I couldn't help but blush at his intense focus. Over the next few months, Marcus became a constant presence, always supportive, always in awe of my talents. With Grandma's blessing, we began dating, and I found myself falling for this caring, enlightened man. We married quickly, caught up in a whirlwind of romance. Marcus embraced my art, encouraging me to turn our small apartment into a studio. Your creativity deserves to be nurtured, he'd insist. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, his tune began to shift. "Don't you think you're spending too much time cooped up in here?" he'd remark, eyeing my paint-splattered clothes with distaste. "The apartment's a mess." I tried not to read into it, chalking it up to his desire for order, but the comments grew more pointed. "We can't live like starving artists forever," he chided one evening, flicking at a stray brushstroke on the wall. "Your hobby is distracting you from more important things." My chest tightened, Gran's warnings echoing in my mind, but I pushed them aside, clinging to the belief that Marcus only wanted the best for us. Then, like a dark cloud blocking the sun, Cheryl arrived. Marcus's mother swept in without warning, her cold eyes immediately finding fault as she surveyed our living space. "Really, Rachel," she clucked, lip curling at my latest abstract piece. "You've let things get quite out of hand here." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "Mother's just trying to help, dear. We could use a woman's touch around here." And just like that, the walls began closing in once more. With Cheryl's arrival, a palpable shift occurred in our home. Her critical gaze seemed to find fault with everything I did. "Honestly, Rachel, how can you let the dishes pile up like that?" She tsk, already rolling up her sleeves to take over. "No wonder Marcus is dissatisfied." Marcus would shrug apologetically. "She's just trying to help, dear. Let her." I bit my tongue, reminding myself that mothers-in-law could be difficult, but Cheryl's help quickly became a stranglehold. New stringent rules governed the household. My art supplies were relegated to a tiny alcove, paints and brushes scrutinized as unseemly clutter. Cheryl made no secret of her disdain for my hobbies. "A woman's purpose is maintaining her home," she declared one evening over a dinner I'd burned while distracted painting. "All this," she waved a hand at my rejected canvases, "it's just selfish indulgence." Marcus stayed silent, avoiding my hurt gaze. I wanted to protest, to remind him how he'd once delighted in my passion. But the words withered in my throat. Cheryl's control seeped into every aspect of our lives. She criticized my makeup, my clothes, the way I swept the floors. Nothing was ever good enough. "You're too soft on her," I overheard her berate Marcus one night. "You need to take the reins, son." The next morning, Marcus's eyes were cold as he handed me a list of chores and budget mandates. "We're going to start doing things properly from now on," he stated flatly. "My mother knows best." I stared at the draconian edicts, a knot forming in my throat. This was exactly the kind of oppression I'd fled from my parents' home. But I was a wife now. Wives obeyed their husbands, kept their households in order. That's what Cheryl and society demanded. So I fell silent and nodded. In the coming weeks, my life contracted around me. Art supplies were banned, deemed wasteful. Cheryl monitored our finances with an iron fist, doling out a paltry allowance for necessities. "We can't have you frivolously spending on those silly painter's materials," she sniffed. I mourned my creations, my vibrant colors slowly graying like my mood. Surreptitiously, I began sketching in hidden corners, hoarding pilfered pencil stubs and charcoal like treasured gems. It wasn't much, but it kept me sane amid the increasingly oppressive household rules. Make the beds precisely at 6 a.m., dust on Mondays and Thursdays only, dinner on the table promptly at 6:30 p.m. Failure to comply brought Cheryl's withering scorn and Marcus's cold disappointment. I walked on eggshells, each day a battle to hold my tongue against their constant belittling. "You're fortunate we put up with your nonsense," Cheryl snapped after I missed a spot whilst cleaning. I clenched my fists, desperately biting back the litany of retorts I longed to hurl. But one cutting remark slipped through. "Yes, I'm so lucky to have such control over my life." The slap cracked like a gunshot. I reeled, tasting blood as Cheryl's ring split my lip. Marcus watched impassively as she grabbed my hair, yanking me close. "Don't ever forget your place again," she hissed, eyes glittering with cruel satisfaction. "You'll do as you're told, or I'll make your life a living hell." I shrank back, cradling my stinging face as she stormed off. Marcus simply turned and followed, leaving me alone to lick my wounds. Curling on the bed that night, I traced the throbbing cut on my lip and finally let the tears flow. How could I have been so blind, so naive as to think I'd found an ally in Marcus? He was just another link in the chain, another cruel jailer suffocating my spirit. But a spark within me refused to be extinguished. I was stronger than their harsh words, stronger than their rules. I would find a way to breathe freely again. Grandma's voice echoed in my mind. "Never forget who you are, Rachel. Your fire cannot be snuffed out so easily. And with that defiant flicker burning bright, I began plotting my escape. With my escape plans simmering, I attempted to keep a low profile around Cheryl and Marcus, but their disdainful glares made that impossible. "What's this?" Cheryl sneered one morning, holding up a pencil sketch I'd carelessly left out. She crushed it in her fist. "Haven't you learned your lesson about these childish pastimes?" I stared at the crumpled paper, something inside me cracking. Before I could stop myself, the words burst out. "It's not a pastime. It's my passion." Her eyes narrowed to slits. "Your passion?" She barked a laugh. "Don't be ridiculous. A woman's passion is her family, or haven't I made that clear?" Seething, I opened my mouth, but Marcus cut me off. "That's enough, Rachel. Don't disrespect my mother." I gaped at him, stunned by his callous disregard for my feelings. The man I'd married, the one who once kindled my creative flame, was gone. This Marcus was cold, indifferent, a pale echo of his former self. Cheryl smirked victoriously. "From now on, I'll be handling all finances. Can't have you wasting money on silly hobbies." She plucked my debit card off the counter. "This is for your own good, dear." Impotent rage coursed through me, but I bit back my protests. Confrontation was useless against their united front. Over the following weeks, Cheryl's iron grip tightened until I felt smothered. She monitored every penny, allowing only meager funds for basic necessities. My art supplies, what little remained, were disposed of as wasteful clutter. "A wife's role is maintaining her household," she proclaimed loftily, "not indulging in silly distractions." I wanted to scream, to rage against her antiquated, oppressive beliefs, but one look from Marcus's disapproving eyes and the fire in my chest sputtered out. I was trapped, a bird in a gilded cage. My only solace came from secret messages with Lisa, my childhood friend. Late at night, I'd risk texting her about my suffocating home life, finding comfort in her outraged support. "You have to get out of there," she wrote one evening. "This is textbook abuse, Rachel." I traced the words, feeling both validated and afraid. Could she be right? Was this really abuse? The thought made my head spin. Marcus and Cheryl were difficult, controlling even, but abusive? Surely not. I was overreacting. Pushing aside my doubts, I kept venting to Lisa, finding strength in her empathy and care. Until one fateful night shattered that lifeline. "Who are you messaging?" Cheryl's voice sliced through the darkness like a whip. I startled, nearly dropping my phone as she loomed over me, eyes glinting with suspicion. "No one," I stammered. "Just an old friend." She snatched the device from my hands. "You know the rules about frivolous distractions. No exceptions." "Please, it's just... Did you hear me?" She raised her voice, cheeks mottling. "I said no exceptions." Marcus appeared in the doorway, frowning. "What's going on? Your wife was disobeying me. Again." Cheryl's tone dripped with disdain. "Wasting time texting friends instead of focusing on her duties." He crossed his arms, fixing me with that disapproving glower that made me shrink inside. "We've talked about this, Rachel. My mother's rules are for our own good." I opened my mouth, desperate to explain, to defend myself. But Cheryl silenced me with a contemptuous look. "Clearly you can't be trusted to follow simple instructions." She pried open a drawer and dropped my phone inside, along with my laptop. "No more distractions until you've learned your place." The finality of the slam made me flinch. Just like that, my last link to the outside world severed. I was alone, truly utterly alone with my tormentors. Without my phone and laptop, the walls closed in tighter than ever. My only connection to the outside world had been Lisa's understanding texts. Now, even that lifeline was severed. Cheryl's iron fist ruled every aspect of our lives. Schedules, chores, budgets, all dictated her draconian policies. One errant step, one perceived infraction, brought her wrath crashing down. "You missed a spot," she'd hiss after inspecting my cleaning. Again, "Are you intentionally trying to disrespect me?" I'd shake my head mutely, swallowing my protests as she berated me like a child. Marcus stood stone-faced during these tantrums, neither defending nor condemning me, just cold, silent indifference. Occasionally I caught him staring at me with an unreadable expression. A glimmer of the man I'd married flickered in his eyes as if struggling to surface, but it never did. One cowed look from Cheryl and that spark instantly extinguished. "Why are you looking at her like that?" she'd demand, voice dripping venom. "The girl needs discipline, not pity." I wanted to grab him, shake him out of this toxic haze clouding his mind. Didn't he see how she controlled him too? But I knew speaking out would only provoke Cheryl's fury. So I remained silent and compliant, hoping to eventually wear her down. That strategy proved futile one evening after she caught me staring wistfully at an old canvas, reminiscing over the vibrant life I'd breathed into it. "Still pining over that silly hobby?" she sneered, plucking the artwork off its easel. "You need to let this go, Rachel. It's unhealthy." "Please." I reached for it, desperately. "That means everything to me." She clutched it against her chest, lips twisting into a cruel smile. "Oh, I know, which is why I'm doing you a favor." With a savage wrench, she tore the canvas from its frame, ripping it to shreds before my horrified eyes. I could only watch, paralyzed, as she methodically shredded the colors, the life, the peace I'd found in creating. When the last scrap fluttered to the floor, she tossed the mangled frame at my feet. "There. Your meaningless distraction is gone for good." Something inside me finally snapped. I rounded on Marcus, who had entered during Cheryl's fit of destruction. "Are you really going to let her do this?" I cried, anguished tears burning my eyes. "She's destroying me piece by piece. When will it be enough?" He blinked, seemingly jolted by my rare outburst. For a fleeting moment, remorse flickered across his features. But Cheryl was quicker. "Don't be fooled by her hysterics," she snarled, grabbing his arm in a vice grip. "She's manipulating you, turning you against your own family." Marcus's face hardened, the shutters slamming down once more. "Don't raise your voice at my mother," he said, each word like a slap. "She knows what's best." I recoiled, feeling the weight of his callous dismissal like a physical blow. This man, this cold, subjugated stranger, he wasn't the person I fell for. Cheryl smirked in triumph. "Now get this mess cleaned up," she ordered, "and no more of your self-indulgent moping, understood?" Throat-burning, I could only nod. I gathered the tattered canvas remnants, cradling the ruined pieces to my aching chest. Once they'd been my salvation, a window into an inner world Cheryl couldn't touch. But now, like everything else, it lay in shreds at her feet, just another causality in her war against my spirit. Each day I could feel myself withering, smothered beneath the weight of her rules, her scorn, her absolute control. That night, I cried myself into an exhausted sleep, dreaming of Grandma's warm embrace, her fierce insistence that my voice mattered. "You have more strength than you know," she always vowed. "Never let them silence you, Rachel." But it was hard to believe that now. I felt so powerless, so hopelessly trapped in this waking nightmare. Except, in the darkest hours before dawn, I was struck by a reckless thought, a tiny spark of defiance that would not be extinguished. Slowly, ever so slowly, I began plotting a way to reach out to Lisa again. One tiny act of disobedience that could reopen the line to the outside world. It was dangerous, risking Cheryl's wrath. But I had to try, had to find a way to fan that spark into a flame that could guide me out of this darkness. I would not be silenced forever. Somehow, someway, I would find my voice again. My secret act of defiance began innocently enough, stashing pencil stubs and charcoal nubs I found around the house. Cheryl would never have allowed me art supplies, but she couldn't deny me every writing utensil. In the dead of night, I'd steal away to a neglected corner of the basement and scratch out tiny sketches on scraps of paper. Rudimentary still lifes, faces, anything to momentarily free my mind from its cage. It was risky. If Cheryl caught me, there'd be hell to pay. But I craved that fleeting escape into my own little world, the one place she couldn't control. Then one night, as I was carefully stowing my meager supplies, a tattered envelope caught my eye. It was tucked behind an old furnace grate, slightly singed but intact. My heart stuttered when I recognized Grandma's looping handwriting. With shaking hands, I tore it open and began reading, hungrily devouring every line of her reassuring prose. "My dearest Rachel," she wrote, "each day I think of you and pray you found even an ounce of the freedom and happiness you deserve." Tears stung my eyes as I consumed her empowering words, the ones I so desperately needed to hear. Grandma had always been my rock, my safe harbor against the storms of life. Reading her letters made me feel cradled in her embrace once more. I quickly found the rest of them, a small cache Cheryl must have confiscated and then forgotten in her zealousness to cut me off from any outside influence. Each envelope was like a lifeline, a reminder that I wasn't alone, that I had an ally in my corner. You are stronger than you know, Grandma's looping script insisted. Never let that bitter shrew make you forget your fire. The letters reawakened a defiant spark I'd thought long extinguished under Cheryl's oppressive boot. My art, my voice, my very identity, she couldn't erase them, couldn't grind me down no matter how hard she tried. I began devouring the letters hungrily, daring to let myself dream of an escape, a future where I could breathe freely again. The sketches grew more elaborate, infused with newfound determination. But in my haste to savor Grandma's advice, I got careless. One night, as I was returning the letters to their hiding spot, a floorboard creaked behind me. I froze, dread churning my gut as a familiar sneer cut through the darkness. Well, isn't this just precious? Cheryl's bony hand snatched the letters from my grasp, lips curling in distaste as she rifled through them. So that's been your little secret. She fixed me with a glower that made my skin crawl. Reading this treacherous bile behind our backs. They're just letters, I whispered, anxiety clawing up my throat. From my grandma. They're all I have left of her. Exactly. Cheryl ripped them in half, letting the shredded pages flutter to the ground. And she's clearly been a negative influence, filling your head with delusions of defiance. She grabbed my sketch pad, methodically tearing out pages and shredding them one by one. Please, I heard the tremor in my own voice, hated how pathetic I sounded. Those mean everything to me. No. She punctuated each word by ripping another sketch asunder. They're a distraction, a crutch keeping you from embracing your proper role. I could only watch, numb with horror, as she demolished the last fragments of my identity, of everything that made me feel whole. When the final scraps drifted to the floor, she grabbed my chin with cruel fingers, forcing me to meet her cold stare. This defiance ends now, she hissed. No more letters, no more scribbling, no more of this pathetic crying. You will obey, or I'll make you regret the day you were born. Do you understand? I tried to pull away, but her nails dug into my skin like talons. Do you understand? She repeated, shoving her face towards mine. Flecks of spit struck my cheek as I shrank back, petrified. I could only manage a tiny nod. Cheryl released me with a contemptuous sneer. Good. See that you remember it. She stormed off, leaving me huddled amid the tattered remnants of my spirit. I gathered the shredded sketches, the torn letters, and cradled them against my heaving chest. Grandma's parting words, now slashed to ribbons, drifted through my mind. Never let them break you, Rachel. Never stop fighting. But as I wept over the ashes of my defiance, it was hard to see how I could ever keep that promise. After Cheryl's chilling outburst in the basement, an eerie calm descended over the house. She watched me like a hawk, looking for any hint of defiance to snuff out. I walked on eggshells, jumping at every creak, flinching from her piercing glares. Marcus, as usual, stayed silent and aloof. Whether he agreed with her tactics or simply lacked a spine, I couldn't tell. He just passively observed the slow erosion of my spirit. I knew placating Cheryl was useless in the long run. Her cruelty ran too deep, her need for domination too insatiable, but open rebellion would only provoke her wrath. So I bided my time, bottling my anger, my anguish, focusing it into a simmering determination. I would find a way to escape this nightmare. Somehow, some way, I'd break free. The opportunity came one night at dinner. Cheryl had been needling me all evening with snide remarks about my cooking, my cleaning, my inadequate performance as a housewife. Honestly, Rachel, she clucked, grimacing at the lumpy mashed potatoes I'd made. Is it too much to expect an edible meal? I grated my teeth, sorely tempted to dump the whole bowl over her head. But I remained stone-faced, silently fuming as she continued her blistering critique. No wonder Marcus is constantly disappointed. You're hopelessly incompetent. That barb struck a nerve. I opened my mouth, finally ready to unleash the torrent of anger I'd been holding back. But Marcus beat me to it. That's enough, he said, voice low but firm. There's no need to talk to her like that. We both froze, gaping at him in shock. Marcus had never once challenged his mother before, at least not in my presence. Cheryl recovered first, rearing back with an ugly scowl. Excuse me, are you actually defending this useless girl? I'm just saying there are ways to give constructive criticism without being cruel. He set his fork down, meeting her seething glare steadily. The constant belittling helps no one. An ugly silence stretched between them. I shrank in my chair, heartbeat thundering in my ears as Cheryl's complexion modeled. How dare you? She rose from the table, hands trembling with outrage. After everything I've sacrificed, you'd take her side against your own mother. Marcus faltered, shooting me an uncertain look, but a muscle twitched in his jaw, and he lifted his chin in defiance. Maybe it's time we had a serious discussion about boundaries. The resounding slap made me flinch. Cheryl's hand seemed to blur as it struck Marcus squarely across the face. "You ungrateful, spineless worm!" She loomed over him, eyes bulging with fury. "I gave up everything to raise you, and this is how you repay me?" Marcus cradled his reddening cheek, stunned into silence. An ugly chuckle ripped from Cheryl's throat. I knew letting that girl into our lives was a mistake. Her glare bored into me like a laser. She's poisoned your mind, turned you against your own flesh and blood. I opened my mouth, desperate to defend myself. But the look on Marcus's face stopped me cold, a strange mixture of fear, resignation, and bitter acceptance. "You're right, Mother," he mumbled, not meeting my stricken gaze. "I was out of line. It won't happen again." Just like that, the fight drained out of him. My heart plummeted, realizing this intermittent backbone had been an aberration, nothing more. Cheryl sneered in triumph. "See that it doesn't." She rounded on me with undisguised loathing. "As for you, you'd better start showing more respect around here. The only reason I tolerate your presence is out of love for my son." Her lip curled. "Though God knows what he sees in a sniveling, ungrateful wretch like you." The words lashed me like a whip. I flinched, blinking back shameful tears as she swept from the room, her scornful cackle echoing like mocking laughter. Marcus stared at his plate, shoulders slumped in defeat. I wanted to scream at him, to demand he grow a spine and stand up for me, for us. But his haunted expression stayed my tongue. In that moment I realized the bitter truth. Cheryl had him too tightly leashed. He would never defend me, never put my needs before hers. I was alone in this battle. But even that knowledge wasn't enough to extinguish the last stubborn flickers of hope, of defiance, burning in my chest. If Marcus lacked the strength to stand up for me, for our marriage, then I would have to find it within myself to stand up for us both. No more placating Cheryl, no more walking on eggshells around her venom. It was time to fight back. Consequences be damned. I was done being a passive victim. My escape may have hit a roadblock, but I would not be silenced or cowed any longer. The war was only just beginning. The distant rumble of thunder was my signal. I finished stuffing the last of my belongings into a duffel bag and crept downstairs, muscles tense in anticipation. Lisa was already waiting in her beat-up sedan, hazard lights blinking through the rain-streaked windshield. I risked one last glance back at the cold, imposing house that had become my prison. No more. I was done being a captive. Lisa threw open the passenger door, eyes wide with urgency. "Hurry, we don't have much time before they realize you're gone." I nodded grimly, tossing my bag in the back seat. "Just get me out of here." "Hey, I don't care where we go." The engine roared to life, and we peeled out of the driveway in a spray of gravel. I watched the looming house recede in the rearview mirror, its harsh angles and blank windows already fading like a nightmare slipping from my mind. My heart hammered the entire nerve-wracking drive, half expecting Cheryl or Marcus to suddenly give chase. But the night remained dark and blissfully silent, broken only by the thrum of the wipers and the drumming rain. By dawn, we were cutting across state lines into a sleepy coastal town, the salty air clearing the lingering ache from my lungs with each reviving breath. "We'll be safe here," Lisa assured me as we pulled into a dingy motel bearing a vacancy sign, at least for now. I could only mutely nod my thanks, feeling unmoored and disoriented. Just yesterday I'd been trapped in that gilded cage of a home. And now I was free, yet utterly adrift. The motel room was cramped but clean, its cheerful ocean-themed decor a jarring contrast to the tasteful but oppressive design of my marital home. So many memories lingered in those cold, sterile rooms. Here I could breathe again, really, truly breathe. Lisa squeezed my shoulder, eyes shining with a mixture of worry and pride. "You're out, Rach. You're finally out of that nightmare." The words hit me with a strange pang, my eyes stinging. I was out. I'd escaped. But at what cost? "I don't know what to do now," I confessed in a small voice. "Where do I even start to pick up the pieces?" "We'll figure it out," Lisa said firmly. "For now, just focus on healing, on rediscovering who you are. The rest will follow." Easy for her to say. That years of conditioning under Cheryl's tyrannical rule had stripped me of any sense of identity beyond meek, obedient housefrau. Who was I, really, if not the cowering, defeated creature she'd molded me into? Lisa must have sensed my doubts. "You're stronger than you think, Rach. That's why you got out." I wished I could share her conviction, but my mind kept spiraling back to Marcus and the shattered remnants of the life I thought we'd have. How could I ever trust myself, or anyone, again after being so thoroughly deceived? Over the next few days, I drifted through the unfamiliar town in a fog, half-heartedly job hunting, as Lisa insisted, but struggling to imagine any future for myself beyond mere survival. I was rudderless, unmoored, suffocating beneath the weight of all I'd endured. So consumed by my inner turmoil that I nearly walked straight into an elderly gentleman on the boardwalk. "Easy there, miss." The cheery voice broke through my stupor. "You look 1,000,000 miles away." I blinked, refocusing on the kindly face and warm brown eyes crinkling with concern. For some reason, his affable manner immediately put me at ease. Sorry, I wasn't watching where I was going." I shifted the strap of my bag awkwardly. "Just got a lot on my mind lately." "Ain't that the truth?" he chuckled, squinting against the sun. "Say, you wouldn't happen to be looking for work, would you? My diner's in desperate need of an extra pair of hands." I opened my mouth to politely decline. What did I know about waitressing? But something made me pause. A flicker of possibility? Of purpose, however small? Or maybe I was just sick of drowning in my own misery. "You know what? I'd really appreciate any job right about now." The old man's face crinkled into a sunny smile. "Well, alrighty then. Name's Trevor, by the way. Let's get you started on a new chapter." Chapter. The word struck an odd chord deep within me, stirring faint embers of the creative spirit I'd thought long extinguished. A new chapter, free from the shackles of my past. I matched Trevor's smile, the weight on my chest feeling just a little bit lighter. "Sounds perfect. I'm Rachel, and I'm ready to start over."